It is 6:04. I will call this Area Plan Commission meeting to order. Can we get a roll call, members, please?
Grant Muller,
Here.
Dan Sheets is absent, Jeff Chenoweth,
Here.
Andy Bailey,
Here.
Walt Minnick,
Yes.
Chad Colby is absent, Kevin Myers is absent, staff members Liz Stitzel and Kat Bell are present, as well as Board Attorney Jay Moore.
Okay. You guys all get a chance to look through the minutes? Any issues? If none, can I get a motion to approve, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Grant Muller,
Yes.
Jeff Chenoweth,
Yes.
Andy Bailey,
Yes.
Walt Minnick.
Yes.
All right, minutes pass 4-0.
Okay, looks like no old business, so we will move on to our first public hearing of the night, which is application CC-2025-01086, docket number 19-25-SD. Can you please take us through the staff report?
I can. So this is the applicant is Tracy Byrne, and this is a request for a primary approval of a one-lot minor subdivision called Tab Minor Subdivision. This property is owned agriculturally, as is the property surrounding it on all sides. The petition site consists of a .76 acre lot in the A1 agricultural zoning district on the north side of East 250 North. It previously had a single wide house trailer on it that was removed in 2021. Prior to the house trailer being removed, the lot was legal non-conforming due to its size, but once the trailer was removed, then the lot was treated like vacant land. The lot size for the trailer was legal non-conforming in '93 when the applicable ordinance was adopted. But since '93, another 6.5 acres adjacent came into common ownership, making it a legal lot. And at some point after that, the owner sold acreage back off, leaving an illegal lot with the trailer that was on less than an acre. A point system was done on the lot, and it did score enough points to be approved for residential use in the A1 district, but it did not meet all the standards and is required to go through the one-lot minor subdivision process because it was not freestanding as a single lot in the same way it was in '93. Before the one-lot minor subdivision request could be considered, there were 3 variances that the petitioner needed to obtain approval for, and they did receive that from the BZA on August 27th of 2024. According to the BZA approval, the applicant had to have a set-aside location for a future septic approval before a one-lot minor subdivision could be filed. A location was found and determined as suitable, but was held up for a bit as the petitioner was not able to acquire and record an easement across adjacent properties for a perimeter drainage outlet. The health department has since determined that they can and will grant a variance from the perimeter drain requirement from their department, with the requirement that a mound system be placed instead of a conventional system on the property. So with that, a recorded easement is no longer needed crossing any neighbor's land, and that would allow it to meet the standards. There is a required set-aside location, so when the proposed system fails, then at that point there may not be enough room on the lot for another future septic system, which could create a future condemnation situation, which the health department has made the applicant aware of.
That silence. No, you're good. Just silencing it.
Okay.
There you go. You're good. Yep.
So that's more risk for the applicant than anything else, as if they have a septic situation in the future, they're on a small lot. However, the health department has approved it as having a plan for that set aside to have a mound system instead of a conventional. Those of you on the BZA, this is going to look familiar since you saw it at that point for variances, but you've got a map on the second page that shows you the petition site and a view of a picture from the road. By a reminder, as always with subdivisions, state law is clear that if they meet the standards, they must be approved. If they do not meet the standards, they must be denied. There's no discretion involved. So in terms of going through the request analysis, this is a primary plat approval for the Tab minor subdivision, which is only a single lot. The required standard rural development protection language is included in the covenants. The surveyor's office waived this from needing to go through the drainage board because of the fact that there was previously a trailer here, and they reviewed it at the time the BZA request was filed and found no drainage issues related to the replacement house. And that waiver states specifically that a replacement home will not impact the existing drainage patterns or runoff rates when the engineer at the surveyor's office calculated that. The health department has approved the new lot is suitable for septic and granted the variance from requiring a permitted drainage outlet so that installation can occur without needing a easement from any neighboring property owner who is unwilling. County Highway has no objection to a drive to access the new lot, and the reciprocal enforcement clause in the covenants is included and can be initiated by an adjacent landowner within a quarter mile. In terms of principles and standards of the design, the two that apply to minor subdivisions are first, that restrictive covenants are properly prepared and legally sound, that are incorporated in the plat, and the restrictive covenants were provided to Jay to review. When we wrote the staff report, we weren't aware of any issues. I don't know if you flagged anything.
My recollection is it was only the normal.
I think it was just the normal basics. Do you remember, Kat?
Whether
Yeah.
lot or lots
Let me look. And while I'm looking, the subdivision name, in terms of not having a name that duplicates or too closely approximates phonetically any other subdivision that's already platted, being a requirement, and we've checked with the county recorder, and there is not any other subdivision with a similar name to Tab minor subdivision, so there would not appear to be any issue with the name. Jay's taking a quick look at the covenants to remind himself, but staff would recommend, because it meets all the standards of the subdivision ordinance, to grant primary approval of the minor subdivision with the condition that the covenants meet Jay Moore's satisfaction before the secondary sign.
Okay, thank you. Is the petitioner present? Okay.
Ron Ware with Moses Surveying represented the petitioner. She's here today.
Okay.
Also, if you have any questions specific for that, we don't have any other specific questions or answers to the staff report. Recommend it.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have anything.
Is there anybody else in the audience that'd like to say anything?
It's no longer-
It all looks okay.
Yeah, I do.
Okay,
And while he's coming up to the mic, Jay confirmed, he double checked over these, he didn't have any corrections that needed to be made on the covenant.
please just state your name, sir.
My name's Eric Keith, and I own the property behind the lot that's in question. My big thing is, I don't want to go back in history and talk about how about a quarter of an acre was illegally tried to take from me by Norm. I don't believe Tracy had anything to do with it. I was told I needed to sign a corrective, how did you put that, Norm? A clerical error was done. And I went up to Moore Title and signed a piece of paper, single piece of paper, only to find out that I had signed a 6-page quitclaim deed. At which time I found out, because survey markers ended up on the property that I had previously purchased. So I contacted the survey people, found out what had happened, went to Moore Title, talked to them. They said, we don't know anything about it. And I said, well, somebody did, because I signed a single piece of paper. I asked for clarification. I wanted to see what I signed. It wasn't a clerical error. They took a quarter acre off the property that I had purchased a year and 2 months earlier. I talked to Norm quite a few times. I never did get to talk to Tracy, and she's the property owner at the time. And I said, you know, I'm gonna have to sue to get my property back because I didn't agree to this. So Tracy signed a quitclaim deed and that property was returned to me. I don't think a house should be built there. It's less than an acre. That's a Clinton County thing, is we're out in the country. And this is gonna change the makeup of that particular piece of property. I am landlocked basically with an easement behind the property and Josh Ritchie's. So if the failed system, or if the system fails in the septic, they had a letter that they brought in the last meeting and said that Josh said they could cross that driveway into his field for a perimeter drain. So those are all the things I know about it, but no, I moved up here to be in the country. I don't think we should shove another house much larger than what a trailer was into this little 3/4 acre lot. That's all I got to say. I oppose it.
Okay, thank you, sir. You guys have anything to add? Anything? If you do, would you mind coming to the mic and stating your name, please?
Michael Gerard, and I own property just to the west. The one question that I have never been able to get an answer from or about is on septic systems. There are minimum guidelines as to how far they have to be from the property line, the house, all of that stuff. The current one doesn't meet those guidelines, from what I've gathered from reading online. But I was told that because it was there before they split this big amount of land up, it didn't matter for the house that was there. But now that we're revisiting, why are we allowing something that doesn't meet regulations?
So I would note the Area Plan Commission has zero jurisdiction over septic systems or how they do or don't go in. The health department has looked at the situation and has given us written approvals both for the existing and for the set aside in a mound system. So if you would have a challenge to the health department's ruling, you would have to work that out with them. But I know that it's standard not to tear out.
I just get the runaround
Yeah.
and
I mean, unfortunately, that's not something we can solve. I will tell you, like, I can't talk to septics, but I know in the case of buildings, if somebody builds something and then subsequently something changed, we don't go down in and forcibly tear down the building. It can continue to be used until it's naturally
understand that the
abandoned,
reason
so
why this-
maybe it's similar. I mean, that's a guess. I'm not, I have no jurisdiction over
but the house
septics.
has been gone for what, 4, almost 5 years now?
So I know of places where septics have been approved for reuse when they've been abandoned for 20 or 30 years if they test appropriately by the health department to still function and they're still in the ground. So I don't think that's unique to yours. I can think of others where systems have been sat for a long period of time with no use and they still are able to function. The health department goes out and verifies that, but we don't have any ability to overrule or second guess the health department. If they put something in writing, state law gives them that power. I mean, that, if you had an objection to that, all I could tell you, and I mean, unless Jay has some other days, you probably need to find an attorney and have a conversation about that in terms of a in-between property owners conversation, but it's, that's not something that we have training or legal jurisdiction in state law. If the health department says that it's approved, we don't have the right to unapprove it.
I mean, the health department does have a board.
They do.
That you could go talk to the board about your concerns with what's happening. I don't, I have no idea what the response would be, but as Liz said, that is outside the boundaries that we have for our jurisdiction.
And I will note, like, it's a separate thing than what you're talking about, but similarly to what we can do with land use, they can give variances, like on this one, they gave a variance from the perimeter drain for the set-aside area because of the inability to get easement. That was their choice. I'll use myself for an example. I have a larger amount of land. I bought a house that was on a tank and tile. I didn't know it when I bought it. Septic system caved in. I didn't have elevations to replace the septic. I would have had to bore under a county road and end up on my neighbor's property just to get flow. So I actually was granted a variance for my perimeter drain because I don't have any outlet. Mine carries a requirement that if subsequently farm tile is put in, I must then connect it at that point in time. I can think of a case on South 39, actually on another real small lot, where a variance was issued from perimeter drain. So they may have other abilities to waive those rules that are legal under state law on a case-by-case basis where there's a reason why it's not practical for a situation to comply, but they make those decisions. We don't have any say in it.
And if it's a mound system, it may also have different setbacks.
Yeah, I know mounds have different rules, but I'm not familiar with all of them
That's right.
for the replacement. But I know even tank and tile systems, they don't meet any of the current rules, but the health department doesn't go in and run people. About 60 to 70% of our housing stock in Clinton County is on tank and tiles. They're not legal. But there's no policy or ability to go and just kick everybody out of those 70% of homes until those systems fail. Then that's the point when they have to upgrade. So like when mine caved in, then I couldn't keep using it. I had to get a permit and I had to put in a modern system. But until that point, the house remained habitable. So I know there is a, if something's been there, it's often allowed to stay. The general consensus across Indiana has been that if you ran 70 to 80% of the population out of their homes on old systems that predate modern rules, nobody would stay in office, and the general outcry would be more than what people would want to deal with, because you'd have that many displaced people. So I guess just to speak to that, it's not uncommon for a system not to meet, but to stay in use until it fails.
Same runaround I got from the Board of Health, so, or them, so, this is just retarded.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything to add or any questions before we go to the board? Okay, board discussion.
Well, when you guys, both of you remember this from
Mhm.
Oh,
November? Yeah. A lot of discussion during that meeting?
Yeah, I mean, there was, but, I mean, we're kind of tight on this one, because they've met the
They met the
requirement.
requirements, yeah.
So, I mean, it's not a good situation, it's not a
Right.
good neighborly situation at all the way around.
No, it's not.
I mean, it isn't.
It's a very dishonest way that they tried to get it the first
Sir,
time.
sir,
Sorry.
no, you're good, you're good.
And was it Eric?
Yes,
You live behind this,
yes, I bought the property.
right there.
place.
And Mike, you're to the
To the
west? Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so the gentleman behind is actually the one that owns the balance of the acreage
Yes.
Yeah.
that was sold off, that previously made the trailer
Okay.
legal. So,
I mean,
And I might add, I have an easement driveway going back to my property,
Okay.
Yeah.
which I thought.
and that easement is shown on the plat, both
Yes.
on his plat and on the
Correct.
neighboring farmer. We did verify when that was filed that
Yeah, good job.
it is shown as a 20-foot driveway easement
Mhm.
that crosses half on each property
Yeah,
for you.
Okay, yeah, you can see that.
yeah, well, and with the mound system, I'm assuming that would not cross the driveway or my easement now?
No, it would not.
Yeah,
Your
it's-
easement doesn't, nothing can go in that easement, so.
Right.
And given that the farmer, that's to the, sorry, I'm thinking to the east, did not put in writing an easement and they've got a variance, then they wouldn't be crossing that. Now, if for some reason they later on got an easement, then, they'd have to work through that process of making sure that they didn't impede your ability to drive to and from your house, so.
It just would, it would really change the dynamic of living in the country. That's my big point. It would definitely change that whole dynamic.
Since there's 4 of us, is this also, does this have to be a unanimous vote?
In order to carry, yes. Now, this is a little bit different than the other situation
Okay.
in that the members who are absent could potentially be present at a future meeting. So if you couldn't come to agreement to get 4 in one position, then you could continue it and see if, when you have 7, a decision can be reached, or 5 or 6. Whereas in the other hearing that we struggled with, you have 2 members with conflicts of interest, and so you have a point at which you're just simply not gonna get, and then on a subdivision, you're a final deciding body. State law says if it meets the standards, you must approve it. If it doesn't meet the standards, you have to specify how it doesn't, and then you must deny it and tell them what to fix. And you work your way through that, so, however you make your motion, then you need to specify appropriately, what backed it, but you're not in the same position because you can get more members. So if you can't agree as 4, then I guess my recommendation as staff would be to continue it and hope to have more members present and then try to resolve it. But you're a deciding body, so you can't ultimately, this isn't like a rezoning where you can pass it to the deciding body.
Yes.
You're gonna have to come to a decision, whether it's because you sit for 8 hours or whether it's because you continue it and try to get more members and see if it resolves it. Or if, subdivisions in state law, they have to meet the standards, so your other possibility, if one of you feels there's a standard that's not met in the subdivision ordinance, then, you know, you could tell them what that standard is and what they need to revise and bring back at the next meeting in order to address whatever the standard is, because everything in subdivisions is about, you know, having your drainage board approval, having your septic approval. I mean, there's gonna be, obviously with minors, you don't have to have street lights or sidewalks, but if this was a major, you know, those are things that could be missing. So you know, you figure out what the problem is, you know, or in a major, you might have, you know, lots that aren't appropriately arranged, or a street with more than a 90-degree or less than a 90-degree angle that doesn't meet the, you know, I'm just listing some of the things, but, you know, you work your way through that checklist, and I don't know if that's helpful. But yeah, there's no way to do a no recommendation on a subdivision. You're either gonna have to continue it for more members, specify what you need in order to verify it does meet the standards, or take action on it one way or the other and explain why.
You have anything else to add, Andy? To finish your thoughts?
No, I mean, I can remember this case, and it's not, like I said, it's not a very good situation. I mean, obviously Tracy wants to replace the house that was on the property. It's a small lot. But seems to be that they've jumped through the hoops that they've needed
Yeah.
to get the approval for both the variances that we granted them back in August as a BZA. And I would make a motion to approve this one lot minor subdivision.
I'll second.
With that, Grant?
Yes,
Sorry, the sound bounces differently in here.
sorry, it's right here.
I've got a weird echo behind me that,
Roll call vote, please, when you get a chance.
Grant Mueller,
Yes.
Jeff Schnaueth,
No,
Andy Bailey,
Yes.
Walt Minnick.
yes,
Okay, so we're 3-0, so that does not carry. So I guess the question I would have as staff on Jeff's side is, what standard do you feel is not met that they would need to bring back or address?
well, I know that, since, there is public comment that's made, so it's not just, whatever the BZA says goes. So we're listening to what comment is made, and so we've got a neighbor on either side that doesn't want this person. And that's where I'm saying, well, I don't see why they'd want to be there anyways, but that's just, the neighbors don't want them to be there. And I'm just thinking, if the BZA has that power, well, then why are we letting people talk?
Yeah, I mean, I think
I don't understand that.
your BZA has discretion on which way your APC follows the subdivision ordinance. I mean, I understand
You know,
that point of it. It's,
The interesting question to me is, does the plan commission have to accept, I mean, the variance has been granted, but it doesn't meet the minimum lot size requirement. But the argument is it does because it meets the variance.
right, because the subdivision ordinance says either you have to have a variance or you have to
Yeah.
meet the standard. In this case, it has the variance.
You know, it bothers me a little bit that
Yeah.
that the people who are supposed to make the decisions on subdivisions can be trumped on whether, by the Board of Zoning Appeals, which maybe comes with a
There's a
different
check and balance, yeah.
mindset
And this has been
there.
an interesting one in the beginning, because had the applicant taken staff advice and pulled their permit for the replacement house before they removed the trailer, none of us would have been here on either board. It would have been an automatic rebuild, but they did not take staff advice and remove the trailer before they got their permits, and then subsequently have, you know, found themselves in this situation. So, well, I guess at the moment we have a home, so I guess your choices are, you can try to talk among yourself and see if you can find a consensus to revote. I think Jeff explained where he was coming from. Or you can, if Jeff's amenable to it, you can continue and
Yeah.
try to get more board members present for more conversation. And then obviously, if you have a full 7, there is no possibility of being hung. You know,
Yeah.
you're gonna have 4 together one way or the other.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone on this has a conflict of interest, so. I will note, however, that the next meeting is not going to have 7 there, because Grant has a conflict of interest, Chad has a conflict of interest. So the most we will have is 5. Doesn't mean we can't still rediscuss it and see if a 5th doesn't make a difference, but
Well, they could.
They could
come for
participate in the
For this
meeting.
part of it.
They just have to set out for the part of the
they'd have
piece
to leave
that
the part,
they.
if they're
Yes.
willing to come in and then go.
That's fine.
Yeah.
So,
That's what I did for the first meeting.
well, and then
Yeah.
you and Andy are gonna have to come back for BZA afterward,
Afterwards
when
anyway.
we're done,
Yeah.
unfortunately,
Okay.
so.
No, that, I mean, personally, that's fine by me. I just have to step out. for
Okay,
that
because I was
one.
because we can't waive rules to continue it 2
Yep.
months because we don't have 5 members present to waive.
No, and I don't wanna make them wait that long, that's not fair to them.
Okay.
So, if we do push it off, I'd rather, or push it to the next meeting, I can make that exception and, do that for them. Like I said, I
Okay,
don't
and
wanna
then
make them-
hopefully our other,
Yeah,
2 members will be willing to do the same and we can
Yeah.
try to get some sort of resolution.
okay. Is that kinda what you guys are thinking? I mean,
Sure.
okay.
Yeah.
Put this first and then they can leave.
We got, I think.
So I mean, what are we gonna ask for, Jeff? When we continue this, is there any evidence that would sway you towards approval of this? Or what do you need out of the applicant to make this approval happen, is I guess what I'm saying.
I think the challenge you have to
know.
wrestle with is state law is really clear that if it meets the standards, you must approve, so it has to tie into a standard in the subdivision ordinance in
Well-
terms of why, and it's unique only to subdivisions, that's not true of BZA approvals, it's
I'm-
not
I'm-
true of rezonings.
That's fine. So
So-
why would we let 2 people talk?
So,
I don't understand.
because you have to allow public
Yeah.
comment whether or not it's
And then we
relevant.
would just vote and just say no to them.
So I can
And
remember
just-
a BZA case where somebody came up and they wanted to speak to insist that the applicant wasn't the real father of a child, and that was supposedly relevant, but the BZA determined it wasn't relevant, but you still had to hear the comments. I think, you have to hear comment, whatever it is, but it doesn't mean that it legally connects to your decision. That's what you have to work out as a
Well, it
board.
seemed like that when I said my comment, you both kind of went, yeah, kind of.
I think because I can't speak for Jay, but for me, I understand and agree that this is a really sucky neighborhood
Well,
situation.
this is the first
Like
one
it-
that I've ever seen
it,
like this. Everything else has
you
been
know.
you just vote, and they've all been,
Yeah,
you know,
we've seen
100%
neighborhood
approved.
feuds before. I guess at the end of the day, for me as staff, I look at where am I gonna lose or win in court? Like, what does state law say and what's defensible? So, I guess that's where I end up landing as a staff member, is state law is pretty clear on subdivisions about standards mattering. But as a person, I completely identify with what you're saying, and that, I don't know that I agree with your frustration about public comment if you don't necessarily follow it, because I believe firmly that people should have the right to speak whether or not it's relevant, because they don't necessarily know what the ordinance says. So a board needs to work out what part of that fits and what part of it doesn't. Because if you tell people they can't speak at all, well, then how do we have any public process? And the burden is on staff and the board to explain why certain parts can be considered and why certain parts can't. But there's rare exceptions. I know we had a BZA hearing not long ago involving a cell tower, and federal law actually specifically prohibits certain types of testimony in that hearing. So that was unique in that we actually had to shut down a topic area. But that's very rare. There's almost no kind of hearing where there's a rule like that. But there are rules that say you can't, even apart from our boards, you can't make decisions based on somebody's ethnicity or their gender or their, so even when someone says something like that as a board, you have to sort through those kinds of things, and there's a million things that might, fall in different less clear black and white categories that you have to figure out, okay, with the BZA, they have to look at specific findings in state law. There's a set of them that applies for variances and one for special exceptions. So when they hear testimony, they have to figure out how does that fit with those findings. With APC, if it's a rezoning, you have to look at the comprehensive plan, and that's a lot more loose because you're kind of looking at how does this fit with long-term patterns and
Okay,
where are
so-
we going. With subdivisions, you look at the written ordinance and the standards and whether or not it meets.
You made the comment that the petitioner was advised not to do what they did,
Yep.
because
Because
you're
then you
gonna
kick
end
in
up-
all the
So you're gonna
curveballs.
end up here. So what does that mean, end up here?
Well, it means the BZA could have told them no on the variances and they'd have been dead in the water and not had any chance to even file for a subdivision and finish the process.
My nodding to you, Jeff, when you were, really was that you were focusing in on the issues that were at the variance hearing. And if you were on the Board of Zoning Appeals, I'm guessing that maybe it wouldn't have passed. Because I don't
And I think
remember
you
what
could
the
have
vote
found
was.
findings both ways, you know,
Yeah,
on BZA. BZA stood where they stood, but I think you could have found findings both ways.
Yeah, no, there was enough there either way.
But you don't use those findings in a APC hearing on a subdivision, so like you can't carry them across the same way.
Yeah. So that was what I was sort of nodding. I understand where you're coming from, because it sort of irks me that we have to approve something if the Board of Zoning Appeals waives a standard.
Yeah, which is
Even
true.
though it doesn't
Yeah.
meet, in my opinion, that the statute would be better if it allowed the Area Plan Commission to have the final say
And you
on
only-
whether it met the standards,
Yeah.
if they've waived if the variance pertains to standards that are applicable to
But
the
the way state
subdivision.
law is set up, the only things you can do variances from, but they're called modifications, are things in the subdivision ordinance. So like if somebody makes an argument they don't want to put in sidewalks in a major subdivision, the APC has the right to waive that requirement because it's in the subdivision ordinance. But requirements in the zoning ordinance fall under the jurisdiction of the BZA, and the minimum lot size happens to be in the zoning ordinance. Now, I will note on this particular issue, our ordinance only stands because of its phrasing. State law changed, 2 years ago now? To state, and I forget which way they phrased it. There's two ways you can write the rule. You can either say that if you're on a septic system, you have to have at least 1 acre, or you can say if you're not on a municipal sewer, you need to have at least 1 acre. And one of those two ways, the state banned to eliminate communities having minimum lot sizes. Ours is phrased the opposite way, so communities that are phrased the other way so far have stood because of the words in state law, although they may eventually change that. But the state has been removing minimum lot sizes and instead just looking at pure septic compatibility. We haven't changed ours because we're not in violation of the state law the way that it's phrased. And to us anyway, the way I always view it, there are more reasons than just septics why a 1 acre minimum makes sense in a rural area. You know, and we see some of those in this conversation.
Yeah.
It just gives a little bit more of a buffer between things where land doesn't need to be as dense. But the health department has gotten much less strict about those 1 acre minimums since state law changed to make it clear that the state does not view the 1 acre minimum as being something that they want to see upheld, and taken away that local rule if you're tying it. And I believe, I don't want to misquote, but I believe the state tied it to if you require a septic system, but ours says if you're not on a municipal rather than if you're on a it's a words thing, right? But they didn't make their rule broad enough to catch all of it. So there were some communities that changed their language. Ours already happened to be okay. But it may be eventually the state fixes that and then we won't have a minimum lot size at all.
Either that or they'll figure out that maybe an acre should be
Makes
the
sense,
minimum.
and maybe they should
because-
put it back in state law, because it used to be in state law as well.
Because one of the advantages of having larger lots is when the septic system fails, which eventually
It will.
all septic systems will fail, you have someplace to go for your next
Yeah.
field.
Well, people sort of think that if your toilet doesn't flush, your septic system has failed, and that is not actually true. If you can see green on your septic lines when, at different times of year, your septic system is in failure. E. coli is reaching the surface of the ground, which is actually the definition of failure. But most people don't consider it that as just homeowners. They think, well, the toilet flushes, I'm fine. But if you can get sick from E. coli on the surface of the ground, then technically your system's not working properly. And because we have very high water tables in Clinton County, even a lot of our newer systems at certain times of the year are technically in failure, and then, you know, the water table drops and it sorts itself out. So it's, you know, it's a definitions thing, but when things quit working, then you have to move to a completely new area, then you can get into a situation where the commissioners are having to condemn a house and tear it down.
So I
I'll
guess,
bring it back to board discussion.
yeah, sorry, I would look like I was just playing on my phone, but what I was doing was looking at my minutes and the notes that I had from this meeting. I had to dig back a little bit. But just to catch you up on what we approved at the BZA in August of 2024, obviously lot size was one. There was a question that there was a confined feeding operation, which was the Barrett's, that would be just on the,
South side.
those guys right there on the map. Sorry, I was pointing towards the map to show Jeff. And then we needed to approve a variance for the proximity to the easement were the three variances that we approved back then. Just to, I guess, give you some clarity on what we did.
Yeah, at the BZA meeting, are you taking public?
Oh, yeah, we took all-
And there
that
was
was-
a lot
that
on this
was
case.
a-
In fact, many of
yeah.
the people here were there then as well. I know on
Both you
the,
guys there?
Yes,
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I,
There's additionally.
Barrett's were there
yeah,
and a
there was a
hand,
larger crowd.
yeah, there was a hand,
Here, he's supposed to
But
cancel.
originally, the original meeting
was continued also.
was continued because the biggest majority of you were against it. There was one
It was
person.
drainage.
It was the
That-
drainage that
It
we
was the
had
drainage that the
questioned.
BZA tabled
Yeah.
because of, and it got sent to the drainage board for review. And then I know on like the confined feeding, part of the BZA's struggle there was, you know, when you look at, BZA doesn't exactly set a precedent, but you do try to make rulings that are somewhat consistent with each other. And every house in that group, just about, if it were to sustain damage from a tornado and a fire, would need a variance to rebuild with the livestock proximity. So there was some concern on the board, at least with the livestock variance, that if you denied it there, and then one of these neighbors, while they were against, took a loss to their house, now you really are very limited in arguing that you should allow them to rebuild, and now you're gonna displace a family that just experienced a tornado or a fire. And so I think there was some of that with the BZA too, when you looked at some of those variances, is these other houses happen to have not been removed, but they would find themselves in the same situation. And well, recognizing they were, you know, there were several strong arguments about the farmers' animals that people were making, but they would then be arguments against their own homes being rebuilt. And it's very likely if they took a fire that they would not feel they should not be able to rebuild. But if the BZA had taken a hard stance, they would have set up a situation where the same exact material facts would come to them, or very nearly, and it would then be difficult to argue that you should allow someone who's being displaced to rebuild. And I think there was some of that, you know, conversation and concern, because all of these houses are, these livestock have been there, you know, for a long time, and they're kind of intermittent. It's one of those where a farmer brings in animals certain times of the year and, you know, certain numbers, but it's done regularly. So, and they do have to have hay, so that makes them a confined feeding, even though it's in a pasture environment, because it's not staying vegetative enough. So they kick in the setbacks. So I know some of that, you know, there were conversations on. There was a lot of conversation about drainage and flooding concerns that was presented at the BZA, which is why they continued it and sent it to the surveyor's office and, you know, drainage for a full review, because I think the BZA's thinking at the time was if that indeed didn't come back, you know, from those who were experts in drainage as working, then obviously that would be a problem.
Well,
And I
We're
think they
gonna,
also
just
wrestled with
just,
that.
I think we've discussed, I think we're gonna continue it.
yes.
Yeah, it sounds like that's where we're
I'd
at.
like to make a motion, as Andy said, it's not a good situation, and I hate that you're gonna have to probably wait a month, maybe I'll get voted down, but I'd like to make a motion that we would revisit this January 6th at the next regular meeting.
I'll second that. Roll call vote when you get a chance, please.
Grant Muller,
Yes.
Jeff Schnauer,
Yes.
Andy Bailey,
Yes.
Walt Minnick.
Yes.
Perfect, that carries. So we are continued, and hopefully we'll have more members. I'll ask Chad if he's willing to come in also.
I was gonna say,
even
you
though
can, I mean,
he
I
can't
can,
Stay.
So-
So maybe we can get 7 to have that conversation.
'Kay.
And then those who have conflicts can go.
okay,
Those of you, this is where it gets tricky, we don't know where we're gonna be. The library is not going to work because they have a mandatory, this is a new rule we didn't run into in the past, but they now have a mandatory, you must be done by 8. And I am unable to guarantee that that rezoning hearing is going to terminate at 8. Well, that would be amazing as a staff member to actually get dinner
Well,
before 10 p.m.
Maybe we ought to go there.
I know, right? Like, we just have to end. But I think we all saw, at the first meeting that, you know, we had 3.5 hours of public testimony. And, well, not all of it may have been relevant. You do want to hear it all and you want to be fair to the crowd
Well,
that
some of
comes,
it we
so.
can, I would disagree if it is not relevant.
Yeah.
We can, and there was,
and I guess I will add, will we have this case before?
Yeah, because.
Yes, because this is old
Yeah, yeah.
business, so
Okay,
it'll come
that's kind of what I was
first.
This will
thinking.
be old business.
Yep.
Okay,
So, but I guess, I don't know where we're gonna be, so that's the challenge where I guess if those of you in the audience can make sure Kat, if you didn't put it on the sign-up sheet, that she has phone numbers, we will call and let everybody know where that will be. But, we're expecting 100 to 150 people January 6th for one of the other hearings that night. So we need to find, obviously, as you can imagine, that would be a little bit oversaturated in this space, so.
From high school.
Yeah, and then we have to have audio, because we have to broadcast on YouTube, so we're just trying to work out some logistics, and we're not there yet. But obviously, we want to make sure that everybody that's here has the opportunity to follow this and be back. So we can personally make sure we call everybody and let you know where we will be as soon as we get that venue
okay.
ironed out.
Nope, that sounds good. So we will move on now. Do we have any new business?
No, other than letting the board know, I've been doing initial first interviews on some potential building inspector candidates this
Okay.
week. I did 2 today, I have a couple more later this week. I don't have as big of an applicant pool as I would like, but I've decided to go ahead and talk to the ones that I do have and see if the right person is in there. So I always let the board know, any applicants that I feel like have potential for that position, I'll be calling back for a second interview. And I always invite any board members that want to sit in on those second interviews. You're more than welcome to join us. Dan's not here tonight. He normally sits in on most interview processes. Of course, he's right next door. But that offer's open to any of you. I guess if there's more than 4 of you that want to, I'll need to send notice to the paper that we have a quorum in one location at least 2 days ahead. But it's not a requirement, but I always invite that with any, you know, the
Yeah.
more minds, the better for judging the right person. So I don't mind at all for those who might want to sit in.
Okay, thank you. So our next meeting will be January 6th, and kind of like Liz said, Kat will be getting a hold of you guys. If you have any questions, reach out. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.